Hi guys! We're back with Leaf Literature and I finally finished it. Today we're going to talk about my review on Wild from Lost to Found on the Pacific Crest Trail. Let's talk a little bit about this book without saying too much. So Cheryl Strand, the author, this is about her life, her experience when she was in her 20s walking the Pacific Crest Trail. Now, the Pacific Crest Trail is pretty much a trail that is hiked from the south of California all the way up to Washington State. It is said that, at the time when she did this, which was around the 90s, I think, they say whenever people go on a hike like this, oftentimes it is because something in their life sprung them to do it. Whether it be some sort of traumatic event, some really big life change, an identity crisis, whatever it is. And I would say that definitely kind of sums up what brought her to the trail. Now, I'm not going to really say what happened to lead Cheryl to embark on this journey. I definitely think that's something that you should read from her own words, but I found the story to be very humanizing. I want to talk about expectations versus reality. So obviously, as I mentioned before, my expectations for this book is I really wanted it to be reflective. I really wanted it to be wholesome. I wanted it to be one of those cozy reads that I can just curl up on the couch and enjoy. I wanted it to have a bit of emotion. I did want to learn a bit about the trail, some wildlife, survival skills, and just things that she experienced along the way. And I would say this encapsulated about 80 to 90% of my expectations. Now, the reality was it was very touching and emotional and reflective, and it was very clear that she went on this journey with purpose and she came out of it with a new sense of self. Now, to me, what I found to be one of the most interesting things about this was just the sheer grit that she had to do this undertaking. She went on this trail for a few months, and just her describing the most difficult times about it, the harsh realities of backpacking with nothing but what you're carrying on your back for that period of time. It's just so astounding to me. I'm just amazed at how someone at her skill level could do something as difficult as this. She was no expert. She probably would consider herself an amateur, though definitely more experienced than me and I think the average Joe. But it's crazy to think about how you can spend so much time preparing for something and you still could encounter so many unpredictable experiences that you could not have prepared for. And I am just amazed at how gracefully she handled it and was able to make it through and survived. And it's also interesting to see the difference in times. I mean, this was the 90s. Granted, that was like 30 years ago, but I still feel like it's very close to my lifetime. But it's still interesting to see how times have changed. What was popular back then, what things costed back then. I mean, obviously the internet was not prominent back then like it is now. I can't imagine doing something like this without internet. But I came out of this just really motivated to do my own little hike and trail. I'm sure many people do. That's probably the running joke about this book, is how people read it and then suddenly want to go on the Pacific Crest Trail too. I don't want to go that big, but it definitely makes me think I could do something like a week-long or weekend-long hike, something I've never done before, and I think I would really love to try it. So if you have any advice there, if you're a hiker yourself and you have any tips on somebody that would want to try something like this, let me know, because I definitely think in my lifetime I would want to do something like that. Another thing I have to point out about this story is how the author held back nothing. She was very candid about her life, the good and the bad, the interesting and disturbing. And in many ways, I felt there was almost too much information on some stuff that I would never imagine somebody writing. or admitting. Controversially, probably, I come out of this feeling like Cheryl is not a very good person at all. She is not someone I admire for really any other reason than this specific journey she went on. And in many ways, and many times reading this, I did judge her actions and her life choices, even through her darkest times. That's not to say I'm insensitive to her experiences and what she went through. There were a lot of things that I definitely think that she did not deserve. But it was definitely difficult for me to read some parts of her story without feeling like this gut-wrenching, twisting feeling in my stomach. There's definitely times when this book made me cry and so angry with her and her situation. And, I know that by circumstance, it's obviously not all her fault, the things that happened. But let's just say I felt like she wrote this in a way that I could feel and empathize with her and understand her, even at points when I judged her. And I think that's like quite literally the best thing about this book, is how real and human it felt. I don't think it would be as good had she left out all of those dark corners. It's definitely good to read something from other people's perspective, especially from people that you don't agree with. And that's not to say there's necessarily anything in here that she's trying to prove. I think she very much just wanted to share her very real story with other very real humans, and I think that's perfect. She doesn't have to prove herself to anybody. She doesn't have to justify herself to anybody. I think what she did was very wonderful. I don't know her, but I'm very proud of her. And to see her come out of this with a lot better perspective on life, better perspective of herself. And in many ways, she, despite the things that I would have never done, there are a lot of things that she did and was able to do and say that I could never dream of doing. And I do admire her for that she has an outlook on life that is so different than mine. And in many ways, sometimes I wish I had. So I think overall, I came out of this thinking about my own life and thinking about, how would I handle these situations that she's been through and what has she done? At the end of the day, who am I really to judge her? And so at times through reading this, I did question, who am I really to judge her? She's sharing this story with all her heart, giving it all, and that's more than I could say about the things I'd be willing to reveal about myself. I think it's important to see sides of people like this. It's good to know when there's other people out there like us making mistakes and, doing very average, normal things. And so in no means by me saying I think that she's not like a great person and that there are a lot of things I did not like that she did. I do think she's come out better for it. And I guess I mean when I say isn't a great person, I just mean, at least during the times of the things she talked about. Obviously, I'm sure her life has taken a very different course than when she was younger. She clearly went on this journey for a reason, to find a better sense of self, and I think she did that. And I definitely think that this is worth reading because she tells it in such a clear and concise way that I can't describe it other than I felt like there were many times I was walking with her. I was walking this trail with her. I was talking with her about these things one-on-one. And I couldn't get more connected to it than that. I think she did everything a story is supposed to do. And so I don't know. I think I say that this lives up to its hype, definitely. And I know I said before that a lot of the books I plan to read in this segment might be for a very specific person. But honestly, I think anyone and everyone could read this book and come out with it enjoying it, because I think everyone could relate to it on some level. Now, granted, she definitely has a more unique perspective, considering she likes the outdoors and hiking, and a lot of her interests, they're not going to hit every person that comes across it. But Again, I think it's important to read real stories by real humans. I don't think she sugarcoated any of it. And I think a majority of people could find some interest in this book. I'd recommend this to a lot of people, actually. While I did take my time on this, I partly just didn't want to put it down. I was afraid for when the story ended, I would kind of lose the connection I felt that I was having with her story. As I said, it felt like I had been talking with her and walking with her, and to put the book down and close it was like an end of an era for me. Now, I'm sure you're all wondering what my rating is. If it isn't obvious by now, I definitely give it a full 5 stars. And that's because I could recommend this to anyone and everyone, really. I think everyone could benefit from a story like hers. And that's the other thing, I don't normally reread books, but a 5-star for me is a rereadable book. It's a recommendable book to almost everyone I know. One thing I do want to comment on in this story is she talks a bit about the isolation she feels as a woman on the trail. And I almost get this feeling from her that she thinks that maybe people look down upon her for being a woman or aren't treating her with the same respect as they would a man doing something like this. But one of the most interesting takeaways that I think she came to and I came to early on is that actually her being a woman helped her in many, many ways. It's just very interesting to see the dichotomy of, what most people might expect from a situation like this, leading to her having a more negative experience because she's a woman, but actually she comes out of it, I think, and I think she'll grow to tell you a more positive experience because she was a woman. And it was just very interesting to see that shift and see her own perspective on what that looked like. And I won't go into that too much. I definitely think you should read that for yourself, but I definitely liked hearing that refreshing perspective and seeing a real example of this. It's just something very interesting to think about, and I'm curious anyone else's thoughts. There's one passage that reads, "I'd never been that way in my life, interacting with men in the even-keeled indifference that being one of the guys entails. It didn't feel like an easy thing to endure, as I sat in my tent while the men played cards. I'd been a girl forever, after all, familiar with and reliant upon the powers my very girlness granted me. Suppressing those powers gave me a gloomy twinge in the gut. Being one of the guys meant I could not go on being the woman I'd become expert at being among men." So unfortunately, I don't have a speed paint cover art segment for this book this time. Life's been pretty hectic, and honestly, it will be a little bit before I can get to the next book. I will still announce that here if you hang back, but if you do have any ideas for art I should do for this in the future, I'm definitely still considering it because I do really like this book, and I think it's worthy of having its own commemorative art. But I will go ahead and announce the next book. So the next book I will be reading is Walden by Henry David Thoreau. I have waited a very long time for this one. I know I keep saying that, but when I say that I've wanted to read a Henry David Thoreau book for a while, I mean a while. I just haven't got around to it because I'm kind of worried. I was worried about my reading comprehension with stuff like this. It's only been recently that I've gotten back into reading, if I'm being honest, and I wanted to take the time to really start enjoy reading again before I throw myself into something that could be, too philosophical, which is what I feel like Henry David Thoreau is always going for. And so if you don't know who Henry David Thoreau is, he is a naturalist, a transcendentalist. He was around the time of Ralph Waldo Emerson. They share a lot of the same ideals or similar ideals. And I've done a lot of research about them, and I'm just really interested in their ideas and what they have to say. And I read a little bit about them when I was in college, and I really want to dive deeper down this route of understanding what they think and hearing what they have to say. So I've chosen Walden because I hear that this is one of his more famous works and that really encapsulates who he is as a person and what he believes. So I'm going to go ahead and read the summary here for you. Henry David Thoreau built his small cabin on the shore of Walden Pond in 1845. For the next 2 years, he lived there as simply as possible, learning to eliminate the unnecessary material and spiritual details that intrude upon human happiness. Thoreau described his experiences in Walden using vivid, forceful prose that transforms his reflections on nature into richly evocative metaphors. In a world obsessed with technology and luxury, this American classic about seeking the essential facts of life seems more relevant today than ever. Of course, this is kind of the Barnes & Noble's copy, so that's kind of what you get. You can always go online and read a little bit more about it. But basically, yeah, he built this cabin and he lived in the woods, kind of isolated for a while. And I guess you could say it's another memoir about isolating yourself in the wild. I guess that's just the trope I'm on right now. But this copy I really like. It's from, as I said, this one's from Barnes & Noble, and it's an illustrated edition. It has really beautiful art in the front and back of it, along with pictures on the inside. So I have to say, I'm very interested. I'm just very interested to read this, and I'm excited about it. I'm hopeful. But I always have that worry that it's not going to be exactly how I expect. So here's to hoping that this one's a good one. I'm really looking forward to it. I don't know when the next review video will be, but you can expect it probably after the holidays when I get all through everything. That said, if you want to join me on Fable, I will be switching the book over still to this, and the book is up as long as I have not made a review yet. So you have until I put up the next review video, which will be minimum a month away, to read this and leave all your thoughts, and I'll be leaving mine there right along with you. My Fable book club is in the description below. If you have any questions or any more thoughts, feel free to leave them in the comments. And as always, thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you guys again next time.